Hello, it's John Heaton, and today I'm going to review this album from John Lennon, live in New York City, which was released posthumously in 1986, and that's when I picked it up. So I've got a couple of copies to show you. This is the original UK copy with the back cover of the band on stage, and then the inner sleeve has various pictures and the lineup of the band, and a picture of John and Yoko on the keyboards here. And this is on the Parlophone label. And then just recently I picked up an Indian pressing here in Hungary, which has this is the back cover from the inner sleeve, basically, but no inner sleeve. And again on the Parlophone, Indian Parlophone label. So the first thing to say about this album, unfortunately, is it's not very well mixed, produced. So for example, when I played this pressing of it, and I think I remember the same being the case with the UK pressing, I had to turn the bass right up to maximum to make it even listenable, because this mix is very high on the top end, and very low on the bass and very low on the vocals in some cases, to its detriment, because even on bootleg, when one had heard excerpts from this concert over the years, they sounded pretty powerful. And so when this album came out, it was a pretty big disappointment, I have to say, because the expectations were high, and there's a few reasons for that. And it came out on video, on VHS, with some of the Yoko tracks included, because Yoko had basically supervised this release, and she'd got rid of all her material, presumably to make it more appealing to the casual fan and the Lennon fan, who wasn't particularly didn't particularly like her work. So I mean, fair enough tactic, I suppose, but I think they should have put out both versions, because the concert is a bit incomplete, and this video, at least at the VHS, this is at least included a couple of her tracks, Sisters Oh Sisters and Born in a Prison. But in this concert she also performed Move On Fast from the Fly album, Open Your Box, the B-side of Power to the People, and We're All Water from Sometime in New York City. And so, as I say, this album, this whole concert, is in dire need of someone remastering it and putting out a deluxe version, and maybe they can put out two versions if they like, just the Lennon stuff if they want on one disc, and then a double version for those of us who want to see the complete concert, because it just is incomplete. And also to remaster it properly, and there were two shows performed on this day, August the 30th 1972, at Madison Square Garden, the afternoon show and the evening show. And this album is mainly from the afternoon show, which apparently of the two was the inferior one, and the evening show was much stronger. I think it's fair to say that they hadn't rehearsed enough, and that kind of shows in the performances in some cases. Now it's interesting that on this album, Lennon Anthology, which came out in 1998, there are 3 songs, I think, from the evening show. Women is the Nigger of the World, It's So Hard, and I forget the third, Come Together, that's it, yeah. And in all cases, the sound is much better, and there's no problem with... Apparently the reason why the second show wasn't used on this album, I read, was because there were some audio problems which couldn't be overcome. Well, that wasn't the case for the anthology. when they put out 3 tracks from that evening show. Patently superior. And I just don't understand why, and people have talked about it. I've read some of the chat on the web, on the net, about why this album hasn't come out on DVD, and it was rumoured to come out to coincide with John's 75th birthday, but it never appeared. So this is all we have, this VHS, for those of us who still have a VHS player. So let's go to the concert. So Jim Keltner is on drums, and he's the one person who can lay claim to the fact that he was at the Bangladesh concert and this concert, which perhaps are the 2 most memorable post-Beatle concerts of the early solo years. And then other than that, you've got the Plastic Ono Elephants Memory Band, who'd backed John on the album of the same year, Sometime in New York City. And so you've got Stan Bronstein on sax, Wayne Tex Gabriel on lead guitar, John Ward on bass, and also a guy called Gary von Sciok on bass, Rick Frank also on drums, and Adam Ippolito on keyboards. And they get a pretty funky sound on the album, and on this concert they're in pretty good form, although there are a few problems on some of the numbers, which I'll come to. So the album opens with New York City, the great track from the Sometime in New York City album, and unfortunately this version is, at least on this record, is a bit flat, because I think the way it's mixed doesn't help. As I said, the bass is mixed very low and the vocals are mixed low on this track, and this has nothing of the power of the album version, and is really a disappointing opener, in my opinion, which is a shame, because I think it would have been a great song to hear live, and maybe it was great to hear live. I don't know if any of you out there were actually there who can testify to how great it sounded on the night. But as I said, I think this is from the afternoon show, and a bit of a letdown all round, really, unfortunately. It's So Hard is tackled from the Imagine album, and I guess Lennon chose this because it's a relatively easy one to learn and to perform, not very complicated as a song, and it works pretty well, and they get a nice groove and some nice guitar from Wayne Tex Gabriel. Woman is the Nigger of the World is probably the best performed song on the whole album. I played this yesterday and I was really enjoying this, and the version on Anthology is even better. So I guess the reason it was the best song on the album from a performance standpoint is that they'd performed already this track on the Sometime New York City album, and they kind of maybe saw it as their own in terms of, you know, that was the performance which was on record, whereas all the other songs on here, they're having to learn the parts which other musicians had played. Well is tackled next, I guess again for the same reason that it's, as they tackled it So Hard, that it's a relatively simple song to do. It works okay in concert, but I have to say one misses Ringo's drumming, and the screaming at the end is not that convincing here, I guess for the reason that he knew he couldn't go over the top because he would ruin his voice for the rest of the concert, which is fair enough. It's all right. Instant Karma, thoroughly lacking Phil Spector's magic on this live version, where he gets that great drum sound. God knows how he got it, with recording maybe multiple drummers or overdubbing it. Here they've got 2 drummers, but the sound is completely lacking, and plus the fact Lennon's playing electric piano as opposed to the normal piano, which is a shame, because I think the overall sound is just a bit tinny, and again the bass is mixed very low. Had to turn the bass up to make this even just get through a listen, to be honest, and even that was a struggle. So sorry to be so negative about this album, because I think, you know, we're lucky to have it. It was the only major concert he did in his lifetime after the Beatles. So By the way, I have to say, in general, I think Yoko's been brilliant in releasing stuff after John's death. She gave all that material to the US radio station for the Lost Lennon tapes. And although this album and maybe Men Love Avenue were a bit rushed, this anthology set is just very tastefully put together. And I like the way she's just put out unreleased stuff. She hasn't tried to mix it with released stuff. So we move on to side 2, and John's tackling Mother here. And I guess maybe I'm a bit protective of the Mother album. I think any of those songs taken out of context, performed live or put on a compilation, tend to lose some of the power and the message of the original album. This version's okay, but again, John's playing electric piano. I think Yoko might be playing also. I'm not sure. I think they're both playing electric piano. I did hear a proper piano in there, but it's mixed too low in the mix. Again, you're missing Ringo's superb drumming on here. Just the feel of the song on the album is just majestic in a sad, and it conjures up all kinds of sadness, whereas this version is less traumatic and less affecting, if one's honest. Then Come Together probably should have been the highlight of this album, because the vocal is just absolutely brilliant. For some reason, Lennon tackles this song in E minor as opposed to D minor, so it's already quite hard to sing that last line of the chorus, Come Together, that bit. He's made it even harder for himself by raising the key, so I'm not quite sure why he did that. But great singing, and the band actually put in a pretty decent funky performance on this song, and that's, they got a hard act to follow after the Beatles' majestic Abbey Road performance, where all 4 musicians are just on the top of their game, and it's one of the Beatles' best sounding records ever. But they do a nice version of this, and Lennon puts a lot of passion into the vocal, and it's a highlight of the album, even though it's from the afternoon show, and the evening show is on Anthology, and it's even better. Same would go for Imagine, although we don't have the evening show version on the official release. This is the afternoon version, and the vocals and the playing on the electric piano are tentative. This song really needs the proper piano, or 2 of them, as were on the original record, and without that it just loses some of its magic. Cold Turkey is next, and taken at quite a fast pace, and it robs the song of some of its power. This is a great single, and again, I prefer the studio version. I don't know if John chose the wrong material to perform on this concert, or maybe didn't rehearse enough, but this song doesn't sound that moving in a concert setting on this particular. I think the 69 version was better, and the same with Instant Karma. It's a shame. Hound Dog, I think there's the bones of a good performance in here, but again, the mixing on this album is so terrible that the bass is really low in the mix, and the drums, so it's quite uplifting, I suppose, but don't play it very often. And Give Peace a Chance is just a snippet of what was a 10-minute jam session where they were joined by Stevie Wonder at the end, and there's another snippet on the Shave Fish album. So obviously between John and Yoko, they didn't think much of this recording, because they had 2 opportunities between them to release it, and they didn't take them. So it's a rather unsatisfactory end to the album. And but apparently at the end of that 10-minute version, the crowd was so carried away they marched down Fifth Avenue singing Give Peace a Chance, which I thought was quite nice. So this is the album we have. I'm glad we have it rather than don't have it, but I think Yoko needs to, I think she already has asked Jack Douglas to remix the tapes, and the fans would dearly appreciate a remastered version of the whole concert on CD, and we'd like a full version of this on DVD with all the Yoko tracks, please. Thank you very much. So, John Lennon live in New York City, the last major concert of his lifetime, and a memorable event, although captured here, maybe not with as much quality as could have been the case. But thank you for watching. See you next time.